You know, there used to be movies that you turned on and you felt like, I'm not supposed to be watching this. Even if you were a grown up, but somehow you found your way to watching them anyway. And the 90s had an awful lot of those. So today, we're going to count down the 90s thrillers that a lot of us watched way too young. And I guarantee at least a few of these are going to hit you immediately. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. All right, so between video rental stores back in the day and late night cable starting to take off, the Skinamaxes, the HBOs, all of that, thrillers were popular. Steamier the better back then, and those movies were everywhere, and a lot of us managed to check those out a little younger than maybe the MPAA said we were supposed to. And even if you didn't fully understand them, you definitely remembered them for some pretty hot reasons. So we're going to count down 10 of those movies today, starting at number 10 with 1995's Showgirls. Listen, all right, this one might not technically be a thriller. You got Paul Verhoeven behind this, but here's the thing. If you grew up in the 90s, Showgirls absolutely counts in movies like this because most of us knew Elizabeth Berkley as Jessie from Saved by the Bell, and then suddenly she's playing this ambitious dancer in Vegas who takes her clothes off a whole lot, and she's trying to work her way up the world of stage shows and performers in what starts off as a chasing the dream story suddenly turns into something way more cutthroat and dangerous. People manipulating each other, using each other, stepping over whoever they need to get where they want to go. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, who I love, same guy as Basic Instinct, Starship Troopers, Total Recall, RoboCop, Flesh and Blood. He has a kind of a theme, and it shows up in this. And as a kid, maybe you didn't follow the industry politics or the character motivations. You just knew this was Jessie Spano doing things you never saw her do on Saved by the Bell. So Showgirls comes in at number 10. And then we have 1994's Disclosure. And I think this one definitely has to be here because it had Demi Moore in it. And she was becoming a huge star. And she had all these sweet movies and sweet characters. And she had sweet, things like in Ghost and all this kind of stuff. She's not sweet in this movie. It also has Michael Douglas in here. He popped up in movies like this all the time. And that's what kind of makes this one feel different. Douglas plays a tech executive who's expecting a promotion and instead finds himself working under Demi Moore's character, which is an interesting way for me to have phrased that. But someone he has a complicated past with, in Demi Moore, and things go sideways. And suddenly he's the one who's being accused of impropriety. And the movie becomes a mix of workplace thriller, like steamy thriller, personal battle, because there's some steamy dialogue in this for sure. But everything comes down to reputation and power. And as a kid, you probably didn't get the corporate stuff, even as a teenager, like I was when I saw this well into my teens. You didn't maybe care about all that kind of stuff, but you could tell how serious it was, and you could tell they were doing and saying things you weren't expecting big stars like that to say and do in movies. And that's why Disclosure fits here. It comes in at number 9. And then there is 1992's Poison Ivy. And listen, this one stars Drew Barrymore. You got Tom Skerritt in there, but Drew Barrymore. So, look, she was just in E.T. like 10 years before this, right? And all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, this is not E.T. in any way, shape, or form. Although this is one of those movies that starts off possibly feeling harmless as she plays this new friend who gets close to a wealthy family, especially the daughter, and then slowly starts to insert herself into their lives. And at first it just feels more like influence, like maybe she's just shaking things up a little bit. But then you realize she's not just fitting in, she's taking over, and she's definitely using her sexuality as a weapon in this, and that creeps it into darker territory because she's kissing everybody, she's doing all kinds of things with everybody. She's got a weapon and she knows how to use it, and that's kind of what makes this one hit, because you didn't see it coming right away with the actress, and then what happens in the movie, and you put those things together. Yeah, Poison Ivy becomes pretty memorable pretty fast. It comes in at number 8. And along those same lines, at number 7, we have 1993's The Crush. This is Alicia Silverstone, sweet and pretty, gonna be in Clueless, all these kind of things. And then, bam, this thing basically turns into Fatal Attraction. It is one full-on obsession story. A young writer, played by Cary Elwes, he rents a guest house, and the teenage daughter of the family develops a deep, disturbing crush on him. And at first, it's just awkward. She's showing up too often, saying things that feel a little off. Nothing too extreme, just a little weird feeling, but then it escalates fast. Jealousy, manipulation, things get dangerous. She basically becomes psychotic, and what makes this one stick is how quickly it goes from a little awkward or whatever to super uncomfortable, super fast, and completely out of control. And I'm going to tell you, Alicia Silverstone plays this pitch perfect in this movie. She is great. Cary Elwes doing some work in here too. The Crush comes in at number 7. And at number 6, we have another one of these movies that was led by a giant star in Julia Roberts. It's 1991's Sleeping with the Enemy. This one is built around a really simple but very heavy premise in Sleeping with the Enemy. You have Julia Roberts, who fakes her own death in the movie to escape an abusive husband. That's pretty heavy. That's where we start with this story. And then she tries to start over a new life in a new town, a new name, a new relationship, all of those things. But then little things start to happen. Signs that maybe the husband is not gone. And maybe that's when the movie starts to tip, and it starts to build a lot of tension. You're just waiting for everything to collide and come crumbling down on her in this new life and this facade that she has built. And even if you watch this a little too young and you didn't fully understand that whole part of the situation and why she was doing it and how their situation had got to that point, you felt the fear of it. You felt Julia Roberts' fear in this situation. It came through, and thriller is a really good way to define this movie, especially when you get towards the climax and things spiral out of control and it all comes to a head. Sleeping with the Enemy, kind of under the radar, but deserves to be here. One that fits perfectly on a list like this, because it didn't matter if you watched it too young or not, you probably remember it for some good reasons. It comes in at number 6. Now at number 5, we have one that was talked about a lot back then, talked about for decades, remade though without the same punch, without the same heart. You can never remake it now. I think they're trying to remake it again. Is 1992's Single White Female. Bridget Fonda and Jennifer Jason Leigh acting their rear ends off in this movie. And this is one of those movies that plays with identity and instability in a very unsettling way. Fonda's character takes a new roommate after a breakup, and at first everything seems kind of normal. Her clothes, her hair, all of that stuff, though, suddenly start to look a little too close to Bridget Fonda's character. Her roommate essentially starts copying her. Everything, including not just her look, but her behavior. And suddenly it turns into a situation where boundaries completely disappear, and you have a psycho woman trying to take over your life. And it builds in this quiet, creeping way until it finally snaps and goes off the hinges, off the rails, whatever you want to say. But Single White Female was talked about for a reason. There's a realism that makes it scary, that like it could happen to you. You can't really ever know a stranger kind of feeling. Something about that is just kind of universal. And Single White Female captured it in a perfect way, and it was creepy, and it still is. I dare you to watch it right now and tell me it doesn't give you the creeps. It comes in at number 5. Now at number 2 is one that I saw when I was like 13 years old when it came out, and I saw it at the drive-in theater with my parents. It is 1992's The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. This one, it's one that was on TV a lot, and you probably rented it and you heard about it because The Hand That Rocks the Cradle stars Rebecca De Mornay in her best performance ever, in my opinion. And she plays a nanny who comes in to live with this family and their lifestyle, and slowly she starts to get too familiar and starts to manipulate everything. She's gaining trust, turning people against each other, taking control piece by piece. And what makes it so effective is how normal, everything feels so super normal. It's like a normal suburban neighborhood, normal people, normal family, normal situation, play dates, taking care of kids, all of these things. There's no big spectacle, but there are a lot of small, calculated moves that are creepy and unsettling on her way to taking over the entire household. Big shout out also to Ernie Hudson in this movie, who plays a great role. This movie is so well acted, so well paced, so well shot, and so realistic it is disturbing. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, a really solid film. It holds up today. Go back and check out the original. Rebecca De Mornay, worth the price of admission in this film. It comes in at number 4.
The people called Samuel G. Boat.
Cape Fear from 1991. Robert De Niro, Nick Nolte, Jessica Lange. This is just straight up terrifying intimidation. A remake of the original. You had Robert Meacham, and you had him reprising a role in this film. De Niro plays a man who was wronged and gets out of prison and decides to go after the lawyer who he blames for being quote unquote wronged. And he doesn't rush it. He doesn't just attack. He gets in their lives. He shows up at the worst possible moments. He psychologically kind of assaults the daughter. All of these things that just keep escalating. I mean, he's a convict, a villain, and it just keeps growing and growing, and you're waiting on it. There's a scene where he's in the theater and he's just like taking over this whole theater, smoking a cigar, and he's not afraid of anything. Anyone. He feels completely unhinged. And that scene, though maybe subtle to some people, is creepy to me because it's like this person has no boundaries. He has no care of the outside world. He has no empathy whatsoever. He has no thought of others. And that makes this person completely capable of doing anything to anyone. And he pushes that just far enough each time he shows up that the relentless pressure of it gets hard to watch. It makes the movie so intense. And then the final showdown on the riverboat or whatever, man, it is next level, unhinged, great performances that culminate in something that honestly is pretty hard to watch, but so well done. Cape Fear, sort of an icon of movies like this that almost slides into horror like slasher territory. If you really want to look at it like that, Cape Fear checks in at number 3. And at number 2 is 1998's Wild Things. Now, this came out right when I graduated high school, so technically I was old enough, and I promise you I drove myself to see this a couple of times. Neve Campbell, Denise Richards, Matt Dillon, Kevin Bacon. This movie is where everything in it is a setup. You can't get relaxed thinking you know anything is going any certain way because it's going to flip on you. It starts with a scandal involving a teacher and 2 students, and you think you understand the situation and that whole setup, and then they flip it. And then when you think you're going down that road and you got to figure it out, it flips again. And you're like, okay, now I'm with it. I see what they're doing. And then it flips again. Every time you think you have it figured out, something changes. Now, maybe that kind of knocks it off just a little bit on rewatchability, but the beautiful cast and the beautiful surroundings are going to take away that problem for you. The whole movie becomes this like layered game of who's playing whom, and it is absolutely just kind of fascinating to watch. And Neve Campbell and Denise Richards, they're like 90s icons, and they are selling their sexuality and at the height of their powers, and it is completely working in this movie. There's a reason Wild Things was talked about so much when it came out, particularly with a bunch of 17 to 18-year-old boys or so that were seeing it at the time. Great movie no matter who you are or when you watched it, but one that we definitely checked out back then. Wild Things comes in at number 2.
It all could have been different, Mr. Walker. You should have allowed nature to take its course. In the end, it will anyway. So let me in the house!
Fear from 1996 coming in at number 1. Mark Wahlberg, Reese Witherspoon, and what makes this one hit so hard is how normal it all feels to start off with. It's kind of a common theme if these movies are done right. You have Reese Witherspoon. She's a teenager. She meets this guy. He's charming. He's sweet, confident. Everything feels exciting. It feels like this perfect teenage romance until it doesn't. Because once the switch flips, everything changes. He becomes controlling, obsessive, violent, unpredictable, and it escalates in a way that feels very real, very plausible. And if you were younger when you watched it, I mean, like I was, 17 years old or something when this came out, it was no big deal. But if you were younger when you watched it, you might not have gotten everything that happened. I was like right in that sweet spot. You're looking for the high school romances and everything, which kind of made it creepier in another way, because you're like, hey, I don't want to get into that. People, female, male, anybody can be crazy. And that kind of adds to how intense it feels. And that's part of the reason why this one sticks. Even though some people, this one might fly under the radar, but because of the star power and because of everything feeling so real, I got this one at number 1. And a lot of us watched it because, hey, it was Mark Wahlberg, it was Marky Mark, and it was Reese Witherspoon, and all of that, you had it in there. And Alyssa Milano, like, oh, this is, and then you watch it and it takes a left turn down the dirt road and goes off the track. And that's why we remember it. So for all those reasons, let me in the house. Fear is number 1. And that's the thing about these movies. We didn't necessarily always go looking for them. They were all around back in the 90s. We found them. We found them on VHS rentals. We found them on late night cable, flipping channels and landing on something that felt a little too real, something we heard people talk about, certain scenes, certain things that were super intense, super exploitative, maybe just fun. And yeah, some of them were a little too early for some people, but hey, that is part of the discovery of films. And that's what I got for you this time. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. If you enjoy what we're doing here and you want to support the channel a little bit more, you can join my Patreon. The link is always in the description. And if you join it, over there you're going to find special members only videos, behind the scenes looks at my filmmaking, deep dives into physical media, 4K releases, entertainment discussions, all of that stuff in a late night 90s uncensored kind of way. And of course, you will get your name and lights on every single video. And I really do appreciate it. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
I know.